Well, howdy. I'd love to thank Danny and Food Tank for inviting me to do this, and especially George Washington University for the incredible leadership role that they've been taking in really making spaces like this available for these incredibly important conversations. It's just good stuff, and it's an honor to be here, and really great to see so many people that I recognize and love and admire in the audience. So I'm going to talk about Wholesome Wave for a minute. Gus and I founded Wholesome Wave 8 years ago, based on the belief that most all people, regardless of income, really cared deeply about food and really understood the importance of feeding their families well. But to be successful, we knew that we would have to prove that what we believed was true was actually true, which was a tall order. So we started with a crazy idea. We didn't do focus groups or anything like that. We just decided we wanted to create a space where we could level the price playing field for fresh, locally grown fruits and vegetables, and then let low-income consumers kind of decide for themselves. Let the market have a voice. So we formalized a program that simply doubled the value of food stamps or SNAP benefits if they were spent on locally grown fruits and vegetables at a farmer's market. The interesting thing was that we actually dreamed this idea could become part of federal legislation. And while many of our colleagues in the movement kind of loved our enthusiasm and ideas, and they believed in us, they were adamant that we would never see policy change and that the incentive approach was just not going to be sustainable. They gave us like 3 years. That was 8 years ago. And yeah, it's kind of cool, actually. And since then, you know, our programs have proven that low-income Americans, by the many, many thousands, will absolutely choose, purchase, consume, cook fresh fruits and vegetables if they can afford it. Absolutely. And that in doing so, that they could actually help small and mid-sized farmers grow and prosper in their food businesses. When we founded, less than 100 farmers markets accepted SNAP benefits. Today, more than 5,000 farmers markets out of the 8,000 accept SNAP benefits. This is huge, and you guys should be applauding that. It's like a big deal. People say change isn't happening. You know, it's BS. Things are happening. Counties, states, municipalities, including the District of Columbia, have made line items on their budget to fund incentives to double SNAP benefits at farmers markets. And just last year, Congress passed legislation supporting the Food Insecurity Nutrition Incentive Program, providing $100 million in federal funds to double food stamps when spent on local and regionally grown fruits and vegetables. Now, on a personal note, the coolest thing about this to me is that we can like call the folks that told us that we weren't going to see any kind of policy change over this work and kind of update them a little bit on what's been going on. And it's a great phone call to make. And we're actually bold enough to see an opportunity to both strengthen SNAP and strengthen these produce incentives in the next coming farm bill, regardless of the administration that's in there. It's just too big of a subject. It's too big of an opportunity. It's just too right. Now, some say that it's too late for real change in the food system. And I say that this is just really, honestly, the true beginning. I've been at this for a long time. I've seen a lot of stuff. The reality is that more and more organizations and their programs are having real traction. More and more consumers, regardless of their income, their demographic, are demanding better food. Now is our time, everybody in this room, to seize the moment and act. So, you know, whether the subject is nutrition incentives, food waste, food and farm worker rights, equitable access to land and financing, a myriad of topics, food is finally taking main stage in American politics. It's happening. We have arrived. We have arrived. So for those of us who have been at it for decades, this is actually kind of the beginning. And we see a great opportunity for the food movement to bridge both sides of the political aisle and really make change happen. We can do that. I ran restaurants for years. My customers, 250 people on a Friday or a Saturday night, Republicans, Democrats, independents, all in the same place at the same time, eating food, talking. They were all my friends. And the one thing that I learned, political differences aside, is that Americans are good people and that people who devote themselves to politics in most cases really do believe in some kind of positive change, if we can get them through the bullshit rhetoric that they use to get themselves elected and get them to remember that we are the American people and that they serve us, they actually take that language pretty seriously. We can make change happen. We also have an opportunity to change some of the language in the debate, and I think this is where the food movement has kind of been missing the boat. You know, for example, you know, when we looked at fighting for SNAP and SNAP nutrition incentives, we did not see citizens who rely on SNAP benefits as beneficiaries or clients, which is what they've been labeled. We saw and celebrate them as consumers. Consumers who last year spent $80 billion on food. $80 billion. That's people power. That's power. But we all have yet to actually harness that power in a way that that constituency has a real voice. Imagine if we could get those 24 million American decision makers who spend those benefits to go to the polls and vote somebody in or out based on the way that they vote on food. That's power. And we need to harness the power because for the first time in history, I'm going to tell you, here's the part where I tell you all the stuff we all already know. Our young won't live as long as we will. Obesity, all the diet-related diseases are absolutely on the rise. Most of this is borne by low-income consumers. Diet has surpassed smoking as the #1 cause of death and disease, all that stuff. Who could have imagined it? As a chef, I never would have thought that this day would come where food would be a killer, right? But we know this to be true. But it's also the bringer of life. And I think great things are happening. So we have this new thing. It's called a fruit and vegetable prescription program. It's scaling. Who's clapping? Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's scaling in one of America's biggest cities, New York City, through a public hospital system. It's happening, rocking right here in DC with DC Greens and Unity Health, really changing the lives of people that rely on food as real meaningful prevention. So the program provides kind of a literal prescription that's given by doctors in a clinical setting, and then monthly health outcomes are measured, health education and nutrition education is given, and BMI is dropping in populations where it was dramatically expected to increase. And now we're starting to measure a variety of other health outcomes so that we can prove that investing in food front end saves a hell of a lot more money than paying for treatment after it's become too late. That's a big idea, and we believe that it's going to be wildly successful. And there's more than just the Farm Bill for all of us to leverage to be able to get more revenues coming to local and regional, mid-sized, small farmers, letting these business proper, seeing better stewardship of the land, and better health outcomes for all Americans. But here's the deal. So many of us are doing critically important work, but it's kind of single subject, right? Working on sustainable agriculture processes and better stewardship of the land. Working to get schools to provide real food to our kids. Working to help the next generation of urban and rural farmers find real success and be able to become the next classic small American business, right? All of this stuff is important, but we can't work in silos because it's only together that we're really going to be truly powerful. And, you know, yes, I've been hearing a lot about like voting with your fork. We have to vote with our forks, our hearts, our hands. For those in the audience that run businesses in this area, you have to vote with your business plan too. Food's just too big of a deal. Our communities, our economies, our natural environment, our personal health, all of these things can be remarkably, dramatically altered for better or worse through food. So we've got to kind of get on the bandwagon we've been talking about and figure out different ways to get this done. Now, we're all here today because we've decided to vest ourselves in this healthier food future for America. Significant forces are aligning. I mean, and this is stuff I got to read because this is like awesome stuff. Food and health are part of curricula in numerous institutions across the U.S., right? My beloved friend and colleague, Jose Andres, teaches right here at George Washington University, The World on a Plate, how food shapes all of civilization. He serves as special advisor to President Knapp on food issues, George Washington University, Harvard, Yale, UC Berkeley, all making critically important contributions to our society in the way that we're going to think about changing the food system. The newly launched George Washington University Food Institute, headed by the one and only Kathleen Merrigan right there. I'm a huge fan. She's a rock star. Is working in collaboration with numerous talented organizations and stakeholders right here in DC to improve the lives and the communities here in DC through food. And at Wholesome Wave, we couldn't be more proud than to be partnering on that with them. This is the place where these things should be happening. Also, nationally, scores of celebrity chefs around the country actively engaging like never before inside and outside of their kitchens around advocacy for policy change. The Chefs Action Network, which is a project in collaboration with the James Beard Foundation, brings together chefs from all over to train them to become more effective advocates for food system issues in the place they call home and even here on the Hill. These are powerful voices. Food Policy Action, led by my dear friend Tom Colicchio, board member of Wholesome Wave, is now scoring every single member of Congress based on how they vote on food issues. And I think there's no better barometer on what's really in the heart and the mind of a politician than how they vote on food. And I really believe this is going to be a tool that will see the right people getting into and the wrong people getting out of office quick. I think food's that powerful. I see media taking a greater notice through movies and documentaries like Place at the Table, Food Inc., King Corn, Fed Up, and millions of Americans are being reached, American consumers like never before. I remember days in the food movement where the only people that cared about food were people who didn't want to eat or consume a chemical unless it was going to get them high, you know? And now we see Walmart endeavoring to have 15% of all of their fresh food by 2015 come from within 150 miles of their regional redistribution warehouses. A major corporation like that doesn't market something like that because their only market is yuppies. They receive 20% of all food stamp revenues. That's almost $20 billion a year. You better damn well believe that all of their customers want local food or they wouldn't be making that move. So we all recognize the enormity of the scale of these ambitions, the many obstacles that lie ahead. A lot of us have been in this for a while. We know what it's like to scrape our elbows on the ground and have to wear Band-Aids. At Wholesome Wave, our success relied on a strong national network of dozens of nonprofit organizations, all very differently run, but brought authenticity, local authenticity, expertise, political access to the issue of food equity. We built collaborations with like-minded organizations and even those perceived to be fierce competitors of ours because we believed that the idea was just too big to try to go it alone, and we didn't give a damn about our brand. We just wanted to see change happen. And our small sector of the good food movement, which I call the affordable access sector, that's our little sector, it was genuine collaboration and working on both sides of the aisle that brought about our very small but very important Farm Bill win. And just a note, you know, collaboration, a lot of people think of it as a warm and fuzzy word. It's a dirty word. It's hard. It's ego bruising. It's bone aching. It's gut wrenching. It slows things down. It's difficult. But if you look at any citizen-led movement, if you look at any progress that's ever been meaningfully made in the world, it didn't happen unless people were able to set aside their own personal core values, find on the important things to align on that would benefit all society, and then agree to move forward. That's where we're at. So, my purpose for the talk today, and here's the most important thing for the room to understand, is that we all, every single one of us, every one of us are on the right side of change. I know each and every one of you know that to be true. And it's been a long time coming, but real cracks and fissures are appearing and widening in a food system that was once thought to be the leading example of how we're going to feed the world. Consumers, especially younger ones, are demanding to know more about where their food is coming from, who makes it, how it's grown, what's in it. And people are taking action on their own, in their own communities, coming up with inventive, creative, MacGyver-style paperclip and duct tape ways to buck the conventional food system. And they're succeeding. Let's not forget that in 1942, almost half of all fresh food consumed by Americans came from little privately held victory gardens. Today, less than 15% in the wintertime comes from America at all. So really good stuff is happening. Public health advocates, chefs, restaurateurs, citizens of poverty, high-profile political figures like Shelley Pingree, Kristen Gillibrand, Debbie Stabenow, all rock stars, all women, by the way. You know, yeah, cool, right? I'll just tell you, side note, at Wholesome Wave, we have like 30 employees and only 4 guys. It's just, women rule the world, I swear to God. But anyway, everybody, consumers in poverty are joining together because we all believe we have this voice. We want to see our food system change. This is our opportunity together to come really come together and make great change. So we need to amplify the collective voices, make healthy foods a reality for those who can least afford them, turn food waste into business opportunities. There's a concept. It's true. It can be done. Take something that you're going to throw away and make some money on it. It's there. Pay food and farm workers a wage that actually allows them to put good food on their own tables at home. Imagine that concept, right? Help small and mid-sized producers and urban farmers actually become successful, truly successful. Never need to write another frickin' grant. We need to do that. Look at all the time wasted writing grants, for God's sake. So we got to work all angles. We got to look at all sides of the aisle. We have to do this together. We need to aggregate. And I'm going to really figure out if we can all collaborate, because we have to be able to follow instructions and get on the same page. So anybody who digs food, I want you to raise your hand. Don't make me look bad. Everybody raise your hand, right? Okay? It can be right, left, doesn't matter, okay? Take your hand out, now bend it behind your head, okay, behind the neck, and pat yourself on the back because you deserve it. There are so many rock stars in this room. There is so much talent in this room. There's so much heart, spirit, and soul in this room. And contrary to what many good food journalists have said, we are a food movement. We are a food movement. I've been at this for 35 years, a lot longer than a lot of these guys who have been writing have. And I can tell you something. I see stuff happening. I've seen more happen in the last 5 to 8 years than I saw in the 27 years before that. We are the food movement, but we need to share. We need to share. And the crux of everything that we're going to do, and our success hinges on this for the future, we need to get down to the business of becoming architects of a food movement to be reckoned with. We need to become a food movement to be reckoned with. So we need to look amongst our leaders. We need to really start to talk to our boards, determine how are we going to de-silo, and how are we going to come together and crack this code? Because all of us, each and every one of us in this room, has the ability to change the world through food, and you better believe it. Thank you.
Wow. That's all I have to say. Michel just gave us the recipe for a better food system. There's nothing left to say.